Welcome back to another episode of Fox Can Fix It. We're going to be working on the 75 El Camino today. We don't have a big job to do, just putting valve cover gaskets on it, but we don't have a lot of time to do it. We're supposed to get some strong storms later on in the afternoon. So I got up early so we can get this job done. So we better get to it. Now, one of the nice things about this El Camino is that it's got air conditioning. But for putting valve cover gaskets on, one of the bad things about this El Camino is that it's got air conditioning. You got to take some of the pump brackets off, and even with those brackets off, that pump is going to be in the way, and it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt, but nowhere near as bad as a heck of a lot of other valve covers out there. So, I guess we shouldn't complain too much. And don't forget, on this passenger side on the top, you got engine to body ground. Yep, can't quite reach that one. Wobbly extension. I guess now would be a good time to remind you that you need to unhook the battery. This has 12 volts all the time. Let's just unhook the battery. That way, if we knock that cover off, we don't just burn this thing to the ground. Good thing is, apparently, that was only finger tight. Come on now, sneak out of there. And this is the easy side. Like I said, that old quart gasket was not in too bad a shape, but you can definitely see wasn't really holding the line anymore. I've got oil coming down the back side of that cylinder head right from this corner. So no matter what, either that valve cover is warped or that valve cover gasket's just no good anymore. I don't have any weird noises when driving, but now would be a good time to check valve lash, at least by hand anyways. Yeah, not really anything out of the ordinary. That's good. That's one less thing. Now, the driver's side. This bracket definitely has to come off. We may have to swing this air conditioner out of the way, which is okay. I mean, it's not really in use right now, so the only thing holding it in place is the bracket. Other than that, it should be fine. It's just kind of a pain to do this extra bracket. Got one bolt here and one right here under the throttle return spring, and that's for the brackets, and this should be 9/16 or ½ inch right there, and get that off. Now that we've got that mostly out of the way, make sure you put all your parts right up here on the radiator support so that when you put a tool down, everything will fall down onto the ground. I just noticed something we're also gonna have to fix. See these cracks right here? Yeah, that's a vacuum leak. We'll be replacing this hose. That's a good find. There we go. All right. There's number two. As you can see, same thing down here. There's too much gasket goop on here. They've been trying to seal up a leak for a long time, but these quart gaskets, while they are good, once they go bad, there's no resealing them. Visual inspection, make sure that you're seeing basically the same amount of threads here at the end of each one of these rocker nuts. That way you know your cam's probably okay. Or at least it's okay as a small era Chevy small block cam ever was, which is not great. All right, just stack those on top of the rest of my mess. We need to get these valve cover gaskets off, get everything cleaned up, and then we are going to degrease these valve covers before we paint them. And I've got a plan for that too. Not only for the cleaning, but also for the painting. Usually, the problem, especially with these stamped steel valve covers, is that somebody has over-tightened one or more of the bolts and just warped it really bad. One gasket. There we go. Two gaskets. We need to degrease all of this before we paint it. Luckily, I've got just the thing for this sort of project. Super Clean. The good people at Super Clean emailed me, asked me if I would review some of their products, and one of the things they sent me was the aerosol version of the degreaser, which we're trying out right now. The big question is, why was the passenger side valve cover so much dirtier than the driver's side? I really don't know. I didn't see any other leaks that would lead me to believe there was some sort of intake or exhaust issue. I didn't see any other massive oil or coolant leaks. It was just dirtier. I don't know. Is that a small block thing? I'm gonna let that sit for a little while. Well, this one's definitely clean enough. We'll set that off to the side. This one needs a little more help. Like I said, this is a side that was super, super greasy. I gotta say though, so far, this is pretty impressive that I don't have to scrub anything, and it's taken the majority of 50 years of filth right off of this. Product placement. Engage. What you want to do though is you don't want to let super clean dry on anything. So once you got it wet and you let it soak for a while, wipe it off, see where you're at. All right, valve covers are all cleaned up and ready for paint. However, I just remembered there's some dents and warpage we got to get out of these, so let's move on to that. All right, these don't have to be absolutely perfect. However, they need to be pretty close to seal up. So one trick I've picked up over the years is just take a level, chuck it up in a vise, and that way you can see just how warped the side of these are. And right around each one of these bolt holes, it is definitely warped. You don't need to go crazy, just some tiny taps. Yeah, that's not too bad. Usually it's the bottom that does get cranked down really hard because that's where all the leaks are going to occur. Oil comes down from the top, gets to the lip on that cylinder head, and if these are warped or if these are loose, that's where it's going to overflow and come down the cylinder head. Generally doesn't leak out the top, so people don't crank these down as much. Most of your warpage is going to be at the bottom. This is a big dent in the valve cover, and I don't know why that's there. It's right near the AC compressor, so maybe somebody dented it thinking that they could get to this, or they were trying to pry on something and pried against this valve cover. But it's right here on the inside next to this baffle, and I think we can get that out with a hammer, at least most of it. I'm going to use the rounded ball end of this ball peen hammer instead of the flat side. I think I can get a little bit better angle on it. And again, take small taps at this. Don't take big whacks at it where you're going to end up hitting something you don't mean to hit, or you're going to punch it out too far and make it look bad, but the other way. Stop and check your progress a lot so you don't overdo it. There we go. It's 99% of that dent is gone. You see the line right here, but honestly, if I keep pushing on that, we're just going to make it worse. It's up against the spot weld on this baffle, and I can't bring that out anymore. Flip our cleaning station over to painting station side. There we go. Now, I was going to go Chevy orange on these, but I'm out of orange paint. I don't feel like going to buy it. So my plan is I'm going to make them fake aluminum. I've got some aluminum wheel paint, and we are going to make these basically first glance aluminum. At passing glance, it'll look like we have more expensive aluminum valve covers on it. At least that's my plan. If it doesn't work out, I guess I'll go buy some Chevy orange. Put a light coat on first. We're just going to dust it. Give the follow-on coat something to stick to. If you overdo it at first, it's not going to stick. If you really want to, you could tape this off. I'm not going to. Paint's not really going to stick to that very well anyway, so it'll be fine. All right. And reading the back of the can here, 10 minutes between coats, so we've got some time to kill. We'll be back. Okay, we've got 2 more coats of aluminum paint on here, and as you can see, now we have aluminum valve covers for our small block Chevy. That'll work just fine for me. Notice right here, there's 2 holes on each side on the bottom of this, or the top, depending on which way you put it on. And that is for the 2 different styles of Chevy valve covers, early and late. Here we've got an early Chevy valve cover. You can tell because it's got Chevy script on it. And we've got a late model valve cover, which is the one we pulled off of our 1975 El Camino. If you look here, older one, the bottom holes are like a spreadboard design. However, We'll flip it over. The top is not. The top is the same distance. And on these newer ones, the top and bottom are even with each other. So the extra holes on that valve cover gasket are for using either the spread bore early valve cover or the square pattern late valve cover. Obviously, if we had the early style, we would have to put these double holes on the bottom because that's where the spread bore is, but it could also create a leak because you've got an open hole here and here. Even if you silicone it, you could get a leak. So what we're going to do, which makes zero difference for us, is we're going to flip this around. This is going to be on the bottom, less chance of leakage. This is going to go on the top, where less chance of leakage. Same difference. And before we put these valve covers back on, make sure you wipe off the surface of your cylinder head here, at least with a rag, but if you got brake clean, you can wipe it off with brake clean on the rag, and that would do a little bit better job. You probably can't see that very well. That plane in the distance, that's a B-29. Not every day that flies over your house. And when you're putting the gaskets on, if you're going to glue them to the valve cover, not to the head. So if you want to put some gasket tack on the bottom of these valve covers, that's fine. Glue the gasket to it. I'm going to make these loose on both sides. That way I can pull them back on and off as I need to. You don't need these super tight. That's about it right there. I mean, you're talking like probably 15 foot-pounds, if that, 10, 15. Might even be in inch-pounds. Never looked up the torque spec. I just know you don't want to overdo it. And there we go. The one I thought was going to be the harder one to get on. It's the easier one to get on. What do I know? If you've been to this channel before, you're well aware that generally I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing. If you're new to this channel, welcome. And no, I don't know what I'm doing. Temp sending unit is back on there mostly. Got ourselves a new PCV hose. Got rid of that cracked one that was probably a vacuum leak. All right, one of the last things we got here is the bracket for this AC compressor. And the pièce de résistance oil fill cap. Here we go. Okay, everybody. We've got valve cover gaskets set on our 1975 El Camino, and we even managed to put on some aluminum valve covers. I think it looks better than it did. What do you guys think? Not bad for a beat up old small block. And as clean as it was underneath those valve covers, I'm pretty sure that this thing is really an 84,000 mile car. Okay, that's going to do it for today. Got some valve cover gaskets on. We even got some aluminum valve covers installed, and we beat the rain. So let me close the hood so we don't get anything wet in there that shouldn't be wet, and I'll see you next time.